you? What?
What are you doing?
Howdy, and welcome to the Bar SC Ranch, where you will experience our journey of running a family business, caring for animals, and doing life together. Subscribe now and be inspired here at the Bar SC.
Hi, my name is Kailey, and today we are going to be shearing my 4-year-old Suffolk ewe today. So here are the materials that I'm going to be using. I have ear protection because the clippers are really loud. And then I just have normal soft soap, hand soap. That's what I'll use. I'm gonna wash her first, and then when the wool is wet, it's actually a lot easier to cut. And then here are my clippers, and then we have clipper oil and Cool Lube. So the Cool Lube is to cool down the clippers once they've been running for a while and they get really warm. We want to keep them cooler so that we don't burn the animal that we're shearing. And then we have clipper oil. This will put around the clipper blades to keep the blades running smoothly. So the Cool Lube is not a lubrication for your clipper blades. This is only to keep them cool. So if you're going to use Cool Lube, you must also use clipper oil. So shearing is very important. Especially during the spring, when it's getting really warm, you want to take their wool off to keep them nice and cool during the summer. But you want to be careful because when you take off that layer of wool, they can actually burn really easily if they're out in the sun too much. So you can either put a fly sheet over them or just a blanket to keep them cooler, or you can just give them plenty of shade to stand in. So this is my 4-year-old Suffolk ewe. I've had her for 4 years, and she has had 3 lambs so far, and I've taken all 3 to the fair. One of them I actually did very well in showmanship with, and I got first place, and I won this buckle, and that was really cool. She's a great ewe. I also showed her the first year that I got her in a breeding class, and she didn't do as well as she could have, but she also wasn't fully matured. So if I took her back, she'd probably do a little better than she did in the beginning. So Skittles here, she is primarily a meat breed, so we actually wouldn't use her wool for very much. Some people do use the wool to spin or do whatever they'd like with it. You would primarily get about 5 to 8 pounds of wool off of her, but you could only use 50 to 60% of that. So I'm going to start by washing her. So I have my soap, and I'm going to treat her like I would a show lamb. She isn't a show lamb, she's my ewe, but I'm still going to treat her the same way. So when you're washing them, you want to get them really wet, make sure they're wet all the way through, and then when you use the soap, you're going to rub the soap in only in one direction, and that's going to go with the way of their wool. So usually front to back, and you just want to make sure you massage it in down. Now we do that because if you go back and forth on a lamb, you'll get swirls underneath in the wool, and once you shear them, you'll get weird shapes in the wool, and it's not the best for when you go and show them. So that's why we just go in one direction. And then to really get under the wool, I'll push the hose into her, and that'll usually help really push the water all the way down to the base of all the wool. So the reason we wash our lambs first is, first of all, when the wool is wet, it's really easy for the clippers to clip the wool. Otherwise, it'll just kind of mat up and the clippers won't cut it as well. Also, we wash them to get all of the dirt and the stuff stuck in their wool, and even some of the lanolin. So lanolin is really thick substance, and it's used in a lot of hand creams, and it's really moisturizing. But if you don't get rid of some of that, it'll really gum up your clippers when you're trying to clip them. So every sheep produces lanolin, and to extract the lanolin, you'll put the wool into a centrifuge, and it'll spin it and extract the lanolin out of it. So you don't have to actually kill the lamb to get the lanolin. So lambs have 3 different places where they have lanolin glands. So the first one is underneath the eye, and that's called the infraorbital gland. So the second gland is located in between the toes, and that's called intradigital gland. So the last gland is located underneath the flank, and that's called the inguinal gland. Okay, so I'm just going to you're going to need a lot of soap, especially if your lamb has a lot of wool. And so I'm just going to do a big strip down her back. here, and then I'll start rubbing it in. And just like we talked about earlier, you want to make sure that you're going in the one direction. You don't want to go back and forth. You just want to go one way. Okay, and then I use just a bit of water to kind of help move the soap around. That'll help get it all the way down to the base of the wool, and then also just move it all the way through her body. So now I have washed my lamb as best as I could get. It was mainly water and a little bit of soap, but we got her as much as we really could. We got the biggest stuff out of her wool, and then we'll move on to shearing. So when I first purchased my clippers, the factory recommended actually putting oil in my clippers every 3 minutes, which is really often. So I try to do it as often as I can. Sometimes it'll be more like 5 to 10 minutes, but I usually go off how warm the clippers are getting or how well they're clipping. If they're starting to get really gummed up, I'll take a break and I'll brush out my clippers and I'll put some more oil in them and lubricate them a little better. So on your clippers, there will usually be some points where you'll have to put in the oil. So here I have 1 point here, I have 1 point here, and then you want to put one in the clippers right here. So I'll put about 1 drop in each of these. So the oil will, once it goes into the clippers, it really helps keeping all of the gears working properly and moving really well and keeps everything lubricated. So when we're shearing, just like we did with washing, we want to shear in the direction of the wool. So we'll usually go from the neck and we'll usually do 1 strip all the way down their back, and then we'll start kind of moving down onto the shoulder and down on the belly and then down on the rump. And we do that because if you try to go up, sometimes the skin will actually wrinkle and then you'll nick them a lot easier. So going with the direction of the wool will help you not nick them as easily. So when you're shearing, you want to make sure you get really close to the skin, but you want to make sure you're not digging down too deep to really nick the lamb. Here we're going to shear the whole lamb. We're going to make sure we take everything off because we're just taking it all off to keep her cooler throughout the summer. On a show lamb, you'd want to more so you'd want to keep all the wool on their legs kind of a little up above their knee and a little up above their hock here, and then for shows you'll do certain things with their legs to really get the lamb looking really good. So you'll see me in the video, I'll start up here at the neck and I'll work my way down and I'll just I'll take all the wool off of my sheep here. And I'm gonna wear ear protection because the clippers are really loud. So let's get started. you can see our half-naked sheep back there. We got half of her done and decided to take a break. So, I have clippers.
Hey,
Yes.
Kylie, do you remember what happened last year when we sheared your sheep?
Oh my goodness, I totally do. The power went out when we half sheared the lamb.
It was so bad. We had, it was the power outages in California. We get rolling power outages where the government turns off your power to save electricity and to keep fires from starting. So we spent 4 days
with a half
naked sheep. It was hilarious. We
That
could have
was
gotten
really
out a generator, but
We
honestly,
could've.
we actually had guests here on the ranch with us and they thought it was hysterical. So we left her half and half just till the power came back on.
That was so funny.
And it never hurts to get that wool wet again because it's really hard, as we were saying, really hard to shear them without the wool being damp.
Yeah, but you want to be careful to really use the sheep shears, because one year we decided to use horse shears, and they shock you when they get wet. So don't do that.
Don't do that.
So you also want to be really careful around this tendon here. As you're coming down the rump here, it can be really easy to nick them right there. So you want to be careful if you need to. You can take the skin and you can roll it to the side, and that way you can really get to the side instead of kind of going straight down at their tendon there.
Thanks for joining us today while we sheared Kylie's ewe. We hope that it was a little bit educational and you learned something about shearing sheep for the summer.
And check out our YouTube channel for more fun and exciting animal videos.
We'll see ya!
If you enjoyed this video, we'd love to hear from you. Like and subscribe and leave us comments about what you might like to see in future episodes. We'll see ya back on the ranch.